Hi, today we're going to see how to configure different type of rules in ATIONET. This configuration is done by a company profile by an administrator of that company. From the Fleets module, we'll go to the section of rules. At first, we can see all rules that were already configured, and to set up a new one, we'll just simply click on the new button. Right now in ATIONET we have 10 different type of rules to configure. The quota rule, a date range, location, fuel, limit per transaction, days time, prompting, dry transaction limit, dry quota limit, and fuel quota limit. As you can see, there are two sections inside the rule configuration. The top section where we will configure the limitation of our rule, and the bottom section where we can configure the entity that we will assign the rule to. Rules can be assigned to fleets, vehicles, drivers, sites, and or fuels. Now let's start seeing each type of rule available. The quota rule will allow us to configure the specific periodicity that we desire to make the limitation, and also limit the transaction by a quantity of transactions, a volume, or amount. Remember that we can combine the fields as we like. We can either configure one, two of them, or all of them. The date range rule will let us limit transactions to be made on specific dates and time. We will input the date from, the date to, the time from, and the time to. The location rule will let us limit transactions to be made on a specific site or sites and or zones. We'll just have to select the site that we wish to make the limitation to, or select several sites if we like. The same thing works for zone. The fuel rule is very similar to the location one, but in this case we will be limiting transactions for specific fuels or fuel groups. The same way as for the sites, we'll be selecting the different fuels that we wish to make the limitation for. The limit per transaction will allow us to limit each transaction by volume, amount, or both. In this case, of course, we will not be indicating the periodicity since this is a limitation for each transaction. The days time rule will let us limit transactions for specific days of the week. In this case, we will also have to indicate the time range that we will make the limitation for. The prompting rule in ATIONET is the only type of rule where we will not be configuring a limitation. In this case, we will be requesting additional information for the transaction itself. We can be requesting a secondary track, a driver or vehicle PIN, a driver or vehicle ID. We can also ask for the odometer, current engine hours, a track unit number, or a trailer number. If the odometer or the current engine hours need to be validated by ATIONET, then a maximum and minimum variation need to be configured. The dry transaction limit rule is exclusively for dry products, or better known in ATIONET as SKUs. You'll indicate the amount for the transaction and also the SKU category. The dry quota limit is also exclusively for dry products, and in this case you will also indicate the amount and the SKU category, but as well the frequency of our limitation. And lastly, the fuel quota limit rule. This rule works exactly like our quota rule. However, we will also indicate for which different fuel we will configure the quota, indicating the frequency and limiting by either transaction quantity, volume, amount, or any combination, and also indicating for which fuel this limitation is for. We can keep configuring the limitation of this quota for different fuels that we configure. These are basically all the rule types in ATIONET that we can configure. For more information, you can access our documentation center at docs.ationet.com or request assistance for any inconvenience to our email support@ationet.com.